Guess who got a haircut today? I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Welcome to Max's Models. I'm Max. Hey, Glue Troopers, Max here. So today I got cranking on the Honest John, got the base coat on it, and I've found that base white does seem the best working paint of all of them. White paints are white paints, but the base white does seem to go on a little more evenly and flesh out a little better. I also started painting some of the accoutrement that came with it, including of course, the boxes, the crates that it comes in. And I've got 20 wheels and tires they're one piece. I'm just going to call them wheels that I have to do. Only two of them are different because they go on the front. The rest are all basically repeats of the other. I have a stencil I'm going to be using to hopefully make relatively quick work out of painting the actual center wheels red. One thing I was a little disappointed in was to see that the side of the engine cowl had the ejector pins on the outside instead of the inside. That just, you really can't, I don't think if you can sand them down without sanding off the detail. And that's kind of sad. That was a easy one to turn around, I would have thought. So anyway, there you go. But the truck itself, got the interior painted, got the engine painted, the frame and everything. And then once that hardened, I started brush painting the cab. And that all went pretty uneventfully. I'm using sort of a brightish green. It's supposed to be a civilian truck, Douglas Aircraft. I think I'm going to go ahead and put the Douglas Aircraft company logos on it. And the trailer bed, I figure was a steel trailer bed. It would all have been painted the same color, but I didn't want it to be completely even and monotone. This is a freight trailer bed, has stuff on it all the time. It's always out baking in the sun, so I wanted that to be multi-tone, have some wear and tear. So I thinned out this was done with a brush, so that it wouldn't have an even coat like with a rattle can or an airbrush. So then I was able to build up certain areas, thin it and thicken it, and get that uneven look, which is just what I was going for. Now I'll have to dull coat it when I'm done. But I still have those 20 wheels, which is, yeah, I'm looking forward to stenciling every one of those. I have a stencil. Hopefully, if I use the airbrush and I'm careful about it, I can just lay the stencil over it, give it a shot, and it'll come out looking okay. Probably have to touch it up a little bit with some flat black, but I'm not anticipating too much trouble. And that was the last thing he said before the sound of bending metal. But right now, I've got to kind of let everything sit over there and harden a little bit. But as often happens when we work on these projects, building the model led to me doing research on the rocket. I got curious about it, and I did watch a couple of the Army training films and documentaries on it, but none of them actually just had a basic history of the rocket. They were all about, this is the Douglas MGR-1, that kind of thing. I know how to fire one now. But I went to the wiki page, started reading up on it, and that led to me down a couple of rabbit holes. And I did not realize that the Honest John, I think it was still in the Army when I was. This thing went active. I'm probably going to do a documentary on it, just the story of the Honest John. But, after World War II, the military was looking at all kinds of new systems, and rocket artillery had a huge range advantage over tube artillery. Of course, tube artillery can fire faster and a lot of other things, but the rockets gave they were supposed to complement each other. Neither one's going to replace the other. But the Honest John was the Army's first nuclear-capable rocket. In fact, I think it was the American military's first nuclear-capable rocket. And of course, it could carry anything in that big warhead. It could carry sarin gas. It could carry this very nasty anti-personnel round that basically was a big claymore mine, like a big shotgun shell. I saw a demonstration of that. I'm like, ooh, I didn't want to be on the receiving end of that. And of course, it could carry conventional high explosives, different warheads, different weights, different ranges. And there were two versions of the Honest John. The first one, which is the one we see in the kit, has the large fins. And it turned out that even after they tested them, they got them out and they realized, these things have a tendency to weather vane, to weathercock with the wind because of the big tail. It's one of the reasons it has spin motors. When they fire the spin motors, get it rotating for stability, just like the rifling on a barrel. But apparently they came up with a B model some years later, and it was actually a little shorter and had a smaller tail. And it also had about half, I think 1/3 more booster power. It went from like 99,000 pounds of thrust to 150,000 pounds of thrust, which literally doubled the range and increased the accuracy. And they usually, I don't think we're planning to use it more than 15 miles for regular artillery because of accuracy issues. But for a nuke, it was good out to 30 miles. That was not a small thing. And since it's a free flight rocket, it doesn't have any guidance systems to jam. So it's just like an artillery round. Once you fire it, that's it. There's no stopping it. And of course, obviously too fast to intercept. And they were cheap and they were easy to use, and it didn't take a lot of training because there was no complex navigation. Basically, it was just field artillery and glorified version of the old Nebelwerfer, the Screaming Memes, or the Katyushas. And but one thing though, you had to have a couple of different vehicles. It could be transported on a trailer, or it could be transported in a truck in pieces and put together. But you still had to have this vehicle with the crane that could sling it over to the launcher, and but that meant you had the truck, the trailer, and the crane vehicle, which really isn't that much setup. The crane vehicle, of course, could be used on multiple rockets, so it's really not much more logistics than regular field artillery in some regards. But they say that the crew could pull up and dismount and load the thing up in about 20 minutes. That's pretty quick. And if it was being transported on the launcher, then it took about 5 minutes. It was just like sighting an artillery piece. They had the foot plates you just screwed down to get the vehicle level and everything. So because it had to be just like a mortar or a field piece, it's got to be level to get your sightings. But you see the guy right there using the artillery sight. It was very straightforward. And I think that may be one reason the Army kept it for a long time. They weren't particularly expensive. But Douglas Aircraft built like 7,000 of them. So that is a lot. And they were used by a bunch of friendly countries as well as us. And I think it was Sweden kept them into, was it the 90s? I mean, that's almost 35, 40-year service life. Despite all that, not one of them was ever fired in anger. So they did their job. The deterrent effect, I guess, that them and a lot of other systems, I mean, I'm not saying that the Honest John did it. Eventually, Pershing and Lance and a bunch of other more advanced systems came in and replaced it. But for what it was, it really did a good job. I'm really impressed with it. And it's a cool-looking rocket, too. And come on. It's exactly the kind of rockets you use to fight Godzilla. I mean, it even looks like the rockets they used in some of the Godzilla movies. It and the Bloodhound missile both look like they belong in Godzilla movies. So, wow. That was way more than a tangent. And it wasn't even the tangent I was going to tell you about, because now I have to tell you about the XM-33 launcher. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Max, I've always wanted to know about the XM-33 launcher. Please tell me. Okay. When I was reading the wiki page, it talked about the different vehicles, the 5-ton truck, which was modified as a launcher. I mean, this stuff was all pretty much largely off the shelf, which is great. But there's one piece that wasn't, and that was the XM-33 launcher. It was a trailer launcher. Now, the trailer you see here is for transporting the missile. The launcher's on the back of the truck. But airborne units you normally have trucks. So they wanted the Honest John to be able to be used by airborne units. So they can't, I mean, they don't have the big 5-ton trucks. They have little, smaller vehicles. So they came up with this trailer launcher. It was a launcher that was used towed behind a small truck or a Jeep or something. But I could not find a picture of it anywhere. So I'll grab a photo. Could not find a picture of the M33 launcher or the XM33 launcher. Every photo, almost all of them was going off to the back of the truck. A few of the test photos showed it going off a ground-based rail. And I thought, oh, that must be it. Nope, those were made specifically for testing. Those were one-offs just to test the rocket. I'm like, the Army takes photos of everything it ever made. I was kind of shocked that I was having this much trouble finding a picture. Finally, I went to AI and said, okay, I asked it, how come I cannot find a picture of the XM-33 Honest John launcher? And he came up with a surprisingly coherent answer, which sounds correct. He goes, the XM-33 launcher was a niche launcher that was just for the airborne because it had to be airportable by early helicopters, so it couldn't be very heavy. Not very many were made. It was only used a short period of time before it was taken out of inventory. And that's probably why you can't find any pictures. It was such a special thing. Okay. But I did find the manual. I went, ha! One thing I know about Army manuals is they've always got photos of everything. So I go, this is from Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Well, when I was in the Army, they had photos of everything. This is a 1959 manual, and back then they figured people could do it without lots of fancy photos and pictograms, I guess. I don't know, because all they have are line drawings. There's no actual photographs of the thing. Manual may have been written before the thing was made. I don't know. But maybe they just wouldn't want to waste time on a photographer and printing photographs because they didn't make that many of them. So it does show how you're supposed to tow it, and it tells you how you're supposed to set it up. And it shows here how you mount the rocket on it. But I could not find a photograph or a picture of an XM33 launcher, the M33 launcher. And I was like, wow. And I actually started reading the manual on it. Oh my God, how bored can you be? I'm not bored. It was genuinely curious. But anyway, so old Honest John there, great rocket. And you think this is a rabbit hole, wait till I do the documentary on it, if I get around to doing it. So enough of Honest John. Now, I did a little bit of work on the Buffalo. I got the mask started masking off the canopy. This mask is not pre-cut. It's the kind they've got it pre-printed, but you have to trim it out. It cuts very easily. It's that nice thin Tamiya tape. But the printing on it, the things are actually a little oversized. So you got to kind of cut inside the line there. Not a big deal. So I got the can about half done, just decided I wasn't in the mood to do it. Looked over the Corsair, wasn't really in the mood to do that. And I figured out why I'm not in the mood to do it. And that's because it's already getting hot down here. Summertime is, it's not technically summertime for us, but trust me, anywhere else in the world, oh yeah, it's summertime. And even with the air conditioner going, you get a little warm in the TARBIS, and it just sort of sucks the energy out of you. So I decided to just do some work in the office and come make some videos and stuff. I did get some work done. Speaking of the TARBIS, somebody asked about the balsa models that are hanging on the wall. The one is Jetco Piper Super Cruiser that was sent to me by a glue trooper who had done this work that you see. So he wasn't going to finish it. I still have the rest of the kit. I don't know when or if I'll get around to finishing it, but I thought it made a beautiful wall hanger because he did great work. And the other one's an SBD from Guilos that Ken gave me, and I made it up as a display model. So there you go. Okay, more than you ever wanted to know about the XM33 launcher, the Honest John, and there's more to come on that subject. And guys, I'll let you go. Take care of yourselves, and as always, model on.